Breaking. King Charles just exposed Prime Minister Starmer during a live television broadcast that left the entire nation speechless. The monarch revealed classified government documents on camera. Over 14 million viewers watched in disbelief. And what happened next could trigger the largest constitutional crisis in 400 years. If you want to understand what this means for Britain's future, hit that subscribe button right now because events are unfolding by the minute. Here's what sparked this unprecedented royal intervention. Just 72 hours ago, Starmer's office blocked a scheduled royal visit to flood victims in Yorkshire. His press secretary claimed scheduling conflicts prevented the Prime Minister from joining. But King Charles wasn't buying it. The King's response shocked everyone. Perhaps the Prime Minister should prioritize British citizens over political maneuvering. Starmer didn't just ignore the criticism. He escalated it beyond imagination. Charles appeared on BBC One last night at precisely 8:17 p.m. during what was scheduled as a standard charity address. Instead, the monarch produced 3 government folders stamped Cabinet Confidential and placed them deliberately before the cameras. His exact words were chilling. The British people deserve to know why their government abandoned flood victims while spending £37 million on private consultants for a failed immigration initiative. The response was swift and devastating. Within minutes, "Number King Charles exposed" and "Number Star betrayed" were trending across all platforms. The BBC switchboard crashed from the volume of calls. Sources inside Buckingham Palace described the king as resolute and unwavering in his decision to break centuries of royal protocol. According to royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell, the monarch consulted with senior advisors for only 15 minutes before making his decision. This wasn't impulse. Witchell reported this was calculated intervention when all other channels had failed. Meanwhile, ordinary British families who lost everything in the Yorkshire floods are suffering without basic necessities. Margaret Williams, a 73-year-old grandmother from Pickering, was found sleeping in her car after 3 days without electricity or running water. "The king offered to visit us," she told reporters through tears, "but the government said no. They forgot about us." While these victims struggle for survival, Star's inner circle enjoys unprecedented luxury. We're talking about £1,200 per night hotel stays during fact-finding missions to European capitals, private jets when commercial flights were available, expense reports showing £380 bottles of champagne at taxpayer-funded dinners. The contrast is so stark, so morally reprehensible that even lifelong Labour supporters are abandoning ship. Former Labour MP in Austin called it the most disgusting betrayal of working-class voters I've seen in 40 years of politics. But then something unprecedented happened that nobody saw coming. King Charles shattered 70 years of royal precedent by directly addressing Parliament's conduct. At Windsor Castle, surrounded by his most senior advisors, he delivered a 7-minute statement that left political commentators stunned. When elected officials place party before country, when they shield themselves from accountability while citizens suffer, the crown cannot and will not remain silent. Charles declared with unmistakable determination. This wasn't just criticism. This was the monarch reclaiming moral authority. Palace insiders revealed Charles had tried private channels first. 3 letters to Downing Street, 2 requested meetings, all ignored or dismissed with bureaucratic excuses. The optics are catastrophic for Star's government, which now appears to be actively battling the most beloved institution in British life. Markets reacted immediately to the constitutional chaos. The pound plummeted 3.7% against the dollar in overnight trading. Investment firm Morgan Stanley downgraded UK government bonds, citing unprecedented institutional instability. Conservative Party unity collapsed as MPs split between defending parliamentary sovereignty and supporting the Macron. Some Monarchy 6 shadow cabinet members have refused to condemn the king's actions, creating the deepest party division since Brexit. International allies are equally shocked. President Trump called the situation very concerning and emphasized America's special relationship with the British Crown. French President Marine Le Pen publicly praised Charles for defending democratic principles when politicians fail. Social media exploded with 3.8 million tweets in the first hour after the broadcast. #numbers saved the king trended globally for 17 straight hours. Facebook groups supporting the king's intervention gained over 400,000 members overnight, polls show. Starmer's approval rating collapsing from 43% to just 28% in a single 24-hour period. Meanwhile, public support for the monarchy surged to 78%. The highest level recorded in decades. Protests erupted across London with an estimated 75,000 people gathering outside Parliament waving Union Jacks and royal standards. Charles speaks for us read thousands of hastily made signs. But wait, because the internal chaos makes the public reaction look mild by comparison. Inside number 10, complete panic has taken hold. Ministers are frantically calling journalists to distance themselves from Starmer's response. Cabinet Secretary James Bowden allegedly threw his phone across the room when told about polling numbers. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was overheard saying, "He's finished. We need to prepare for what comes next." WhatsApp groups with names like Damage Control and Leadership Options are plotting potential successors. The question isn't if they'll challenge Starr, it's when. Starmer himself looked visibly shaken during an emergency press conference at 10:42 this morning. Sources say his hands trembled so badly he couldn't hold his water glass. 4 senior advisors have already resigned, including his communications director and chief of staff. Their resignation letters describe a leader incapable of recognizing the severity of the situation and consumed by personal animosity toward the crown. But here's the explosive revelation that could end Starmer's political career forever. Leaked documents show Starmer's office actively worked to undermine royal charity efforts for 3 consecutive months. A confidential memo titled Monarchy Messaging Strategy explicitly states, minimize royal engagement with crisis situations to maintain government as primary response authority. If these documents are real and if they show what royal sources claim, then Starmer deliberately prevented flood victims from receiving assistance for purely political reasons. Think about what that means. A British Prime Minister intentionally blocked aid to suffering citizens because he didn't want the monarchy getting positive publicity. The optics of that would be absolutely devastating. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Rishi Sunak is orchestrating a masterful response. While Starmer melts down on camera, Sunak appears statesman-like and measured. This isn't about politics, he declared outside Parliament. This is about respecting our institutions and helping British citizens in need. The polls tell the story. Conservative support has jumped 11 points in 48 hours. For the first time in 14 months, they lead Labour in voter intention surveys. Sunak isn't just gaining ground. He's positioning himself as the natural successor should Starmer's government collapse under the weight of this scandal. The next 72 hours are absolutely critical. Parliament has called an emergency session. Cabinet ministers are being summoned back from overseas trips. Legal experts are debating constitutional boundaries on live television. The question is no longer whether Starmer survives this crisis. It's whether the relationship between government and monarchy will ever be the same again. Britain is watching its political foundations crack in real time. This crisis will be studied for decades as the most significant constitutional challenge since the abdication of Edward VII. At its epicenter stands Keir Starmer, who looks increasingly isolated, paranoid, and incapable of managing the firestorm he created. So, here's the question that matters. Did King Charles overstep his constitutional role by exposing government documents? Did Starmer just commit political suicide by battling Britain's most beloved institution? Or did Charles accidentally trigger a long overdue rebalancing of power between Crown and Parliament? What do you think? Would you side with the King or the Prime Minister in this constitutional showdown? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to see what's really happening in Britain right now. The mainstream media won't tell you the full truth about Starr's war with the monarchy, but we will. And wait until you see what happened when Queen Camilla entered the fray. That's coming in tomorrow's video. And you won't believe what she said about Labour's inner circle. The confrontation between Charles and Starmer isn't just political anymore. It's becoming personal and dangerously so. Late last night, the Prime Minister called an emergency press conference at Downing Street. Witnesses describe his appearance as disheveled and combative, with dark circles under his eyes and his tire skew. Starmer abandoned his prepared remarks. Looking directly into the cameras, he delivered what many are calling the most aggressive attack on the monarchy in modern British history. "The Crown serves at Parliament's pleasure," he declared, slamming his fist on the podium. Not the other way around. If His Majesty wishes to play politics, he should abdicate and run for office. The room fell silent. Veteran journalists gasped audibly. BBC political editor Laura Quinsberg later admitted she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Within seconds, Starmer's press secretary tried to end the conference, but the Prime Minister waved her away and continued his extraordinary tirade. These documents were classified for national security reasons. Their disclosure represents a criminal act that undermines Britain's democratic institutions. "I have instructed the Attorney General to review all legal options. But here's where it gets truly unprecedented. At 6:40 a.m. this morning, police vehicles were seen entering Buckingham Palace grounds, not the usual protection officers. These were Metropolitan Police detectives. Sources inside Scotland Yard confirmed they were delivering formal documents regarding the Official Secrets Act violations. Let that sink in. For the first time in British history, a sitting Prime Minister appears to be threatening legal action against the monarch constitutional. Experts are horrified. Professor Richard Norton of Cambridge University called it the most dangerous constitutional moment since the English Civil War. Former Supreme Court Justice Lady Hale warned that Britain is entering uncharted waters with potentially catastrophic consequences for our system of government. The markets reacted with panic. Trading in UK government bonds was temporarily suspended after yields spiked to 5.7. The FTSE 100 plunged 7.22% in early trading, the worst single-day drop since Brexit. Economic confidence is collapsing in real time. But while the elites worry about markets, ordinary Britons are taking to the streets in unprecedented numbers. An estimated 250,000 protesters gathered in Trafalgar Square by noon today, waving Union Jacks and carrying signs reading, "God save the King and Star must go." Similar demonstrations erupted in Manchester, Birmingham, and Edinburgh. Military veterans in full dress uniform formed a symbolic guard around Buckingham Palace. Albert Thompson, an 87-year-old Chelsea pensioner who served in the King's Own Regiment, stood at attention for 3 hours despite the rain. "I swore an oath to the Crown," he told reporters. That oath doesn't expire because some politicians' feelings are hurt. Meanwhile, working-class communities in Labour's traditional heartlands are turning against Starmer in droves. Union leaders who once formed Labour's backbone are publicly distancing themselves. The General Secretary of Unite, Sharon Graham, issued a blistering statement. "When the King shows more concern for flood victims than the Labour government, something has gone terribly wrong with our party." The palace response has been measured but powerful. Rather than engaging directly with Starmer's threats, King Charles visited Yorkshire flood victims early this morning. No advance notice, no press release. Just a monarch in Wellington boots helping elderly residents clear debris from their homes. The images are devastating for Downing Street. While Starmer threatens legal action from behind podiums, Charles kneels in the mud consoling a tearful 79-year-old woman who lost her home. "He hugged me," Doris Fletcher told reporters, her voice breaking. "The King of England hugged me while the government sent me forms to fill out." Inside Westminster, Starmer's authority is evaporating by the hour. Cabinet WhatsApp groups have gone silent as ministers fear their messages might be leaked. In-person meetings are now held in whispers. Junior ministers avoid eye contact with Starmer in corridors. 4 senior Labour MPs have already submitted letters of no confidence. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Ree hasn't been seen in public for 28 hours. Fueling speculation she's preparing a leadership challenge, Chancellor Rachel Reeves canceled 3 scheduled appearances, citing urgent business that sources say is actually emergency. Meetings with party donors trying to stem the financial exodus. Labour Party headquarters resembles a war room in collapse. Staffers are updating their LinkedIn profiles. Press officers refuse to defend the indefensible. One senior advisor was photographed leaving the building with a cardboard box of personal belongings at 3:42 p.m. yesterday. But here's the most explosive development yet. Classified documents from Starr's own office have been anonymously delivered to multiple news outlets. The contents are absolutely damning. Internal emails show Starmer's team actively monitoring the king's popularity and developing strategies to rebalance public attention away from royal activities. One particularly shocking email from Starmer's chief strategist reads, "We need to marginalize Casey's public role. His connection with voters is becoming problematic for our messaging strategy." Another from the Downing Street communications director specifically discusses the Yorkshire floods. Royal visit creates unhelpful comparison with PM schedule. Recommend postponing until media cycle moves on. If these documents are authentic and 3 separate media organizations have verified their digital signatures, then we're not looking at a constitutional disagreement. We're looking at a coordinated campaign to undermine the monarchy for political gain. The Conservative opposition has seized this moment with remarkable discipline. Rather than attacking Starmer directly, they positioned themselves as defenders of constitutional stability. Shadow Home Secretary Priti Patel spoke outside Parliament, surrounded by her colleagues. "This isn't about party politics. This is about preserving the delicate balance that has kept Britain stable for centuries." The latest YouGov poll shows Conservative support surging to 41%, while Labour has collapsed to 23%, their lowest level in 5 years. Reform UK under Nigel Farage has jumped to 19%, creating a 3-way political landscape that could reshape British politics for a generation. International reaction continues to damage Britain's standing. President Trump posted on Truth Social, "King Charles is being treated very unfairly by a failing government. Britain deserves better." European leaders have begun cancelling scheduled meetings with British ministers, citing uncertain political conditions. The Commonwealth nations are watching with growing concern. Australian Prime Minister Peter Dutton called an emergency meeting with opposition leaders to discuss the implications. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau issued a carefully worded statement reaffirming his country's unwavering respect for the Crown. Military leaders are privately expressing alarm. Former chiefs of defense staff have reminded current commanders that their oath is sworn to the monarch, not to the government of the day. A subtle but unmistakable message during this constitutional crisis. The question now isn't whether Starmer's government will fall, but how and when. Westminster insiders point to 3 possible scenarios, all unprecedented in modern British politics. A formal vote of no confidence from his own party, a mass cabinet resignation forcing his hand, or most dramatically, a direct request from the king for his resignation. That last option would shatter 300 years of constitutional precedent. But we're well beyond normal precedent. Now, we're watching history unfold in real time. A seismic collision between Britain's ancient monarchy and its modern government with no clear resolution in sight. So I ask you, has Starmer committed political suicide, or is Charles risking the future of the monarchy itself? Is this the beginning of a new constitutional settlement or the end of British stability? Leave your predictions below. The next 24 hours will determine whether Britain's system of government survives intact or fractures beyond repair. And if you found this analysis valuable, share it with friends who need to understand what's really happening while the mainstream media sanitizes the truth. Hit that subscribe button now, because our next video will reveal the secret meetings happening right now between palace officials and opposition leaders. The establishment doesn't want you to know how deep this crisis really goes, but we're committed to bringing you the unfiltered truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes the powers that